Whether you are thinking about becoming a restaurateur or you are already in the business, Michael Politz has written a must-read, The Food and Beverage Magazine's Guide to Restaurant Success. Pick up your copy today at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, or wherever fine books are sold.
Food and Beverage Magazine Live, bringing food and beverage to life with your hosts, James Beard Award winner Jennifer English and Food and Beverage Magazine publisher Michael Politz. Featuring leaders in the hospitality, branded food and beverage, and CPG industries, many of whom are Jennifer and Michael's friends in the business. For an informal and informative conversation where friends in the business share the latest intel, ideas, and best practices. Live, juicy inside scoop from the tastemakers, newsmakers, bread bakers, drink shakers, spoon lickers, clam diggers, farms, foodies, and friends of the food and beverage magazine world. Here are your hosts, Jennifer English and Michael Politz.
Well, hello, friends. I've been reading the Food and Beverage Magazine Guide to Restaurant Success because the world is reimagining what the restaurant industry is going to look like. We're moving into Food 3.0, Web 3.0, and the future of food. This is a super exciting day for us because we have the one and only Max Tucci on with us. And sometimes if you want to go forward and you want to look into the future, to do so wisely, we have to look at what we've done brilliantly well in the past, align them, and we have a solution to how to do that just perfectly today. Max Tucci is the author of the upcoming book being published later on this year by Rizzoli called The Delmonico Way. As you can see, he is bespoke in his Delmonico wear. And most importantly, he is the legacy keeper for the incredible restaurant that was literally our first fancy restaurant. Restaurants used to be really important places in our culture. They've always been important in our culture, and Delmonico's was the most important place. It's where people went to have important conversations and meetings and celebrations, and it became something much, much more. And for over 100 years, Max's family, or nearly 100 years, Max's family, starting with his grandfather, Oscar Tucci, brought the Delmonico's way to life. When we're reinventing and reimagining what the hospitality industry is going to be, we have to look at what it essentially is. Welcoming, hospitality, conviviality, and above all, food that is so irresistible they talk about it for generations to come. All in the spirit of welcoming. And in the spirit of Delmonico's, where truly all were welcomed, we are going to bring that spirit right here, right now to life. And we're going to welcome the one and only Max Tucci. Max is the host of Max and Friends on LA Talk Radio. I've been fortunate to be a guest on his show many times, and it is a pleasure to welcome him here today to Food and Beverage Magazine Live. Max Tucci from Delmonico Farms in upstate New York. How are you?
Jennifer English, I'm wonderful. Thank you. How are you? And thank you for having me here today. It's very much in the spirit of Oscar Tucci, my grandfather. We're welcome at the table. Thank you for having me here.
Listen, it's so important for us to talk about the future of food. We do that regularly on our Clubhouse show, The Future of Food and Hospitality, in the Talk Nerdy to Me Club. We do it in Food and Beverage Magazine. Literally 14 million readers a month are looking for where we're all going next. Mm-hmm. I want to start by saying, before we go back, let's look forward a little bit. First and foremost, where do you see the hospitality industry today?
So the hospitality industry today, I see there's a big duality to it. We have the fast food where nothing really matters, the value menu, and then we have the extreme of real hospitality, of welcoming, of validation. I hear you, I see you, you matter. And restaurants that give me that experience are ones that I refer to as the Delmonico Way, ways that my grandfather would run Delmonicos. For instance, when I go into the Polo Bar in New York City and I walk in and I see Nellie and I'm greeted with a hug and I'm greeted with her smile and I'm greeted with the energy of welcome. And then the service mimics the front of the house. And they're genuinely happy to see you there. They're welcoming. So for me, that is the hospitality world that I like to see. That's the service that I like to see. And I would like to see that service that's in the Polo Bar also brought into mom and pop shops, which they do. I love when I go into a mom and pop shop and they hug me and they know me and they welcome me. But I'm talking about if fast food, if that's what we're looking for, because they're saying that home delivery is 60% of the future of food. So if that's what home delivery and food is, then what's going to happen to the fast food industry? So for me, it's all about really validation. I see you, I hear you, and you matter. And that to me is the essence of hospitality, the spirit of Oscar Tucci and the Delmonico Way.
That is also timeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that you said that sort of opens the door to the conversation about what comes next is where we've been. For people that aren't from the part of the world where Delmonico's was well known, and I don't know where that is, because everything from Hello Dolly to some of our most famous shows and our famous literature, Delmonico's is such a cultural institution that it is so widely known. But for people who are not of that generation, would you introduce the world to Delmonico's if we don't know it yet?
Absolutely. We can travel down this yellow brick road. First and foremost, Delmonico's was America's first fine dining restaurant. It established with the Delmonico brothers in 1827 as first really a bakery. And then it took some years to progress into a restaurant. And by the time they had the restaurant in full swing, it was the first restaurant to introduce the menu, a la carte, tablecloths. It was the first first restaurant that allowed women to dine unaccompanied by men. April 20th of 1868. That's the first time women were allowed to dine unaccompanied by men. And then it went on into the future from having created the wedge salad, which my grandfather created in the 1930s, but backing up to lobster Newburgh, to baked Alaska, to eggs Benedict, to the Delmonico potatoes, Delmonico steak. Now, there's been disputes about who is the one that really has created or invented these dishes. I understand that. But what I know to be true is that Delmonico's, if the dispute is there that they did not invent it, surely made these dishes famous. In addition to the famous foods that Delmonico made and prepared, really Delmonico's was an institution, an iconic institution, a business that had multiple locations in New York City. Now, if we remember New York City, we look at it as being really the epicenter of food. The crown and the jewel and the crown, and all of these things. But in reality, it was Philadelphia that held that jewel in the crown until New York came and kind of took it away. And that's going back to the Gilded Age, to 1800s. Of course, today we see the beautiful show, The Gilded Age, and we can go to The Alchemist and all these shows that Delmonico's was portrayed in. But one thing that I would love for you to take away right now is to Google search Delmonico's in movies, Turner Classic Movies, Girl with the Yellow Ribbon, April Fools, Hello Dolly. There's numerous Life with Father. There's so many movies where celebration was going to have, and you had your celebration at Delmonico's. It was really the stage where you were invited to celebrate your victories.
Let's look. We've got a couple of pictures of the original locations of Delmonico's, and I'm hoping we can pull those up for people to see.
There it is.
What is this building we're looking at here?
So that's the famous Citadel building. This is on the corner of Beaver and South William Street by James Lord Brown. The building, originally there were fewer floors, and through the years it turned out to be this iconic location. Many think it's the Flatiron Building, which it's not. This is in downtown Manhattan, Wall Street area. My grandfather in 1927 purchased the basement and the first floor where you see these awnings. And he created a speakeasy Now, Delmonico's, if we just backtrack for a moment, Delmonico's closed a few times. In 1917, it closed because of this is like, when I was reading this, is like, really, this is so ahead of its time. It closed for meatless Mondays, which we do today, and wheatless Wednesdays because of the war and war rationing. So it closed then, and then it closed again during Prohibition, 1923. Why did it close for Prohibition? Many think, and this is what the book will tell you, that it closed because alcohol for drinks. Actually, it was liqueur and alcohol that were in the predominantly French cuisine that was being served at Delmonico's. So the ingredients and the food was suffering. So the restaurant really stood no chance, and in 23 it closed, and it stayed vacant for 3 years. On those floors, you'll see there were insurance agencies, there were shipping bill lading agencies. So each floor were really an office for many years. And then in 1926, when the building was slated actually, which is heartbreaking to even think, to be knocked down. And
Wow.
Oscar Tucci came in, and he purchased those lower floors first, created his speakeasy, and then in 33, he had the third liquor license in New York. And slowly but surely, he started, moving his way on up. And eventually, he purchased the entire building and created many, many private rooms there, the Hunt Room, the Baroque Room, Bulls and Bears, the Python Room. And so really, this became an institution. And then on the top floor was the penthouse, which also had its modern-day kitchen. That was a quote from the 1950s New York Times, the modern-day kitchen and the penthouse suite. And that was a private dining facility where you could then go and entertain not only at the table, but if you had a suitor, maybe also in the bedroom. So it had a lot of stories. If those walls could talk, if those rooms could talk. And that's what the book will share, a glimpse into the Delmonico Way, which really is the Tucci way. And in this photo here, to the far left, we have my grandfather in white tie, Oscar Tucci. Standing next to him is Nell Benedict. Nell Benedict was the heiress to Tropicana. She was family to the Tuccis, and really she's my Auntie Nell. She was an Auntie Mame in my life. And then we have, next to Auntie Nell, we have her husband. And the gentleman to the far right, Pen and the Pencil Restaurant, Mr. Bruno. So
Wow.
This is at Delmonico's. Now, if you really pay attention to the photo and you see the scroll work and you see the sconce in the background, that was the Baroque Room. My father had designed the Baroque Room to really evoke, he loved traveling. We have a house in Florence, Italy, with a beautiful villa there. And so he was bringing that into Delmonico's. And so that scroll work that you see, that sconce that you see in the book, The Delmonico Way, we have beautiful illustrations. Roberto, who's my unbelievable book designer, has incorporated those scroll works into the pages, so it feels that you're really coming into Delmonico's once more.
We've got a few more pictures, and this one just absolutely. You want to say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I feel like you could tell me endless hours of stories about this, because this looks like it was typical of many days and nights at the original Delmonico's.
Well, typical, not so much, because it was the first women's luncheon. Now, if you look into the closeness of the picture, you see the table right in the front with the two ladies. And Jennifer, that was you and I. I'm sure that we were part of that in a past life, because there was no way that we were going to allow men to just control the restaurant and not have women enjoy it. So there was, and all of these stories we really bring into Delmonico's to set the yellow brick road, to set each brick into the road. And these women, they were the women, the trailblazers, that said, no, we want to be included in meals. And so we're going back to 4/20, 1868. This was the first women's luncheon where they did not have to have men. And the backstory I'll save for you to read in the book.
I want to point two things out about a picture like this.
Mm-hmm.
And it strikes me. This is something we recognize today. Oh, what a wonderful restaurant. Please paint a picture of the world in which this restaurant existed and how uncommon this scene was, not just for the ladies, but for the ambiance, for the public house nature of it. Can you speak to how that image captures something that was so out of the ordinary? And one might argue the roots of where the Delmonico legacy really began.
Absolutely. So Age of Innocence is what always reminds me of that photograph. And when you really look at that photograph, if we could pull it up for just one more time so we can really walk through it and be part of the journey, you see the tablecloths. That was something new to American restaurants. Look really at the detailing of the building, that heavy wood and the flowers and the beautiful light fixtures and the gilded mirror in the background and the drapes. And you can't really see it in this photo, but there was beautiful wallpaper, wall covering. And so when you really factor in all of these beautiful additions to the restaurant, this is something that America had never seen before. This is why Delmonico's is known as the first fine dining restaurant of America. So thank you for putting up the picture again.
Max, no, leave the picture up for one more second because I want to point something out. Max, you and I talk oftentimes about the sort of energy side, the spiritual side of our existence in the world of food, the energy with which we welcome our guests. To me, one of the most important things that this picture shows us is how this room made these human beings feel.
And Oscar always said that. You know, Oscar, the takeaway for Oscar was people will always remember how you made them feel. And when you look at this picture, it validates women to say that, yes, you are welcome. All are welcome. And this was pre-Oscar Tucci. This was the spirit of Delmonico's. All are welcome at my table. And really, that's what this picture is saying. Imagine, Jennifer, imagine going to a restaurant and being turned away because you're a woman. Today, it would be all over social media.
I mean, no offense, but as a member of the community that I'm a part of, I am regularly experiencing that in a different form, in a different way today. In fact, a lot of us are. And there's more division than ever. But I want to digress from how we're different and come back to how we're the same and how hospitality is such an important lesson when we move forward into Web 3.0 and we use artificial intelligence as a metric and we imagine the world that we're going to be inhabiting as the architects, all of us, of the future of food. I'm thinking of all the ways that we have to take what we know is most important to people. When James Beard, the father of American gastronomy, said food unites us, he didn't just mean that the things that we have in common will unite us, that there was something much more important, deep, and connective and aligned about that. Would you talk a little bit for me about how important you believe? And this is, I realize, a big question, but you are one of the few people I know that have all the tools to handle this. When we move forward with all the artificial intelligence and technology that Web3 promises, and how much more important is it for us to build into this new food world of 3.0 and the future of food? How important is it for us to build in recognition of how important it is to make people still feel a certain way around food? And how do you propose? And how do you propose we do that in a world that increasingly is wanting us to have everything in our life that matters and is important on something we hold in our hand like this versus in a room like that? How does this make us feel versus that room?
Look, as we're speaking, Clive Davis is calling me. And the reason why I bring Clive Davis up is because he understands it. You know, when he has a party, he knows he's really the orchestra of his dinner parties. And placing each guest at the table is so important. So how do we do that? How do we create that space 3.0? We're doing it right now. Right now, we're on a screen. We're in someone's house. And I hope we're bringing the essence of hospitality, that we see you, we hear you, you matter. Welcome. Is Clive calling you now?
Yes.
Welcome to our table. Now we have to also really dive into our senses. Hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touch, feeling. How do we get that out of 3.0? How do we give that virtual hug that says, you're welcome at my table? And I love the quote, if you can see it in your mind, you can create it in your reality. Right. We have to become daydreamers again. We have had our daydreaming, not me, but I love to daydream. I've daydreamed Delmonico Farm into reality. And my dreams were literally keeping me awake. We have to daydream again. We have to be able to close our eyes and go back to whatever period of Delmonico's you want to be in. Do you want to be in the 1800s? Do you want to be in mid-century? Where do you want to be at your table? So it takes a lot to say, what is the answer? There are many answers to the question, but I think the one that's most important is daydreaming. Learn how to daydream again, because there's times when, we get that scent of maybe you have those really beautiful hot cross buns in the oven. And if I mention them enough with the icing dripping and the cinnamon, and maybe we've grated some nutmeg on it, you start smelling it. You can be in that moment. So we really have to have descriptive narrative in the future of 3.0. And really, I love descriptive narrative. Think about this for a moment. Instagram offers descriptive narrative. It is a huge audience for those that are visually impaired. And when you go in,
just for the sake of everybody that doesn't use Instagram, what are you talking about?
So descriptive narrative, even forget Instagram for a moment. Descriptive narrative, describing the scene. Jennifer English is sitting there in a polka dot shirt. She's got a painting behind her that looks like a natural stone. Behind her is this beautiful mirror that has gold veins through it. Her glasses are very beautifully and broad and heavy. Her earrings are pearls. She has beautiful blue nails. Her hair is done. So when I'm doing that is I'm giving you the ability to close your eyes and picture it. So for what Instagram,
the mind that radio has always been, if it was done well.
And that's descriptive narrative. And Instagram, I bring that up because they offer descriptive narrative for the visually impaired who can't see the photograph, but yet can read what's in the photograph. And people are not tapping into that. It's a huge audience, 3 million people, they say. So if we were all just to close our eyes and be in the dark for a moment, the invisible world behind our eyes is real. What is going on in that world behind your eyes, in your mind, in the visual, in the descriptive narrative? So if I can say, here we are in a great room, the heavy wooden walls are warm, the smell of tobacco and bourbon fill the air, there's a waft of perfume, Gypsy Rose Lee just walked by, you can feel her chiffon dress and feel the sable that she's wearing. And then you're smelling the food, the curries, the white wine. So you're really giving people that experience. So descriptive narrative.
Don't ignore the descriptive narrative. We're talking with Max Tucci. He is the author of the soon-to-be-published book, The Delmonico Way. He is the keeper of the Delmonico legacy. This is Food and Beverage Magazine Live. Max, would you do me a favor? Can we look at a couple more pictures? Because one of the things that can happen is in Web3, in the future of food, we will put on our virtual reality and our AR glasses and our goggles, and someday it'll be even glasses much smaller than this, and it will show you a menu when you walk into a restaurant. It will show you pictures of the dishes. It will show you what's possible.
Here's your cover menu. This was a cover menu back in 1950s with the D and the wreath, Delmonico's. It's a beautiful wreath, and that D is really iconic to the Delmonico brand and to Oscar Tucci and to the Tucci family. This is the logo that I really have the authority of, that I am the legacy of. This is the logo where you come in and you say the first page, the Delmonico Way, the Tucci Way. Tucci, Delmonico, 2 households. It's almost like the Romeo and Juliet story. And the Delmonico Way is the title of the book. And here we have the kitchen.
Okay, now this I want to see.
Yeah.
This photograph, it just spoke to everything in my soul. First of all, it's back of the house. And there is no place I love more than the back of the house. Sorry, front of the house. To me, this is the beating, thumping, pulsating heart and soul of any hospitality. It starts here, it ends here. Look at those people. Look at what they're doing. Look at their passion. And frankly, if you change their clothes, those could very easily be at any James Beard nominated restaurant today. Maybe the pans wouldn't hang over their heads like the sword of Damocles, but we would be very, very close to what they're doing there. Talk about this for me, because it just speaks to how excellence existed then and how excellence can and will exist in the future.
Order. What I see in this picture is order. Not only are the pans ordered and the chefs ordered, everything has order. And if you really look into the depth of the picture, there is a whole crew. Even further back, you see even more crew. So this was, if you picture perfect example, I like to say Delmonico's, but without the tragic ending, was the Titanic. Imagine this kitchen, and this is most likely Chef Ranhofer here, who was the author of The Epicurean. And you have the most incredible kitchen there. And that was the belly of Delmonico's. When all of these, to me, it's magical. It's like Jack and the Giant Beanstalk, where you throw in this amazing magical bean, and all of a sudden you have this. Imagine going into a restaurant today and this was their kitchen. It doesn't exist anymore.
No, but I have to say, the other thing I like about this, it really speaks to what it takes. Mm-hmm. And this is what it takes. And you want to know why the restaurant industry was so decimated by COVID? It was because what it takes to be a great restaurant kept facing external pressures in the existing modalities that happened up until about a year ago. Mm-hmm. We all faced the fact that this was something that needed an update because the economic pressures and other pressures of the reality of the restaurant business, the very things that Michael wrote about in the Food and Beverage Guide to Restaurant Success, those were just getting squeezed. And it was time for the reimagination, the reinvention of the hospitality industry with ghost kitchens, Kitchen United, with the kinds of robotics and smart, intelligent, really technologies that will allow the mundane to be removed from human activity and free us up to do the things that are uniquely human, such as welcoming, care, attention, intention, putting intention into food. So this was necessary, but doesn't this remind us that somehow we still have to do that? Mm-hmm. How are we going to come up with technologies that allow us to do that? Because that's what it takes in some form to do. And then go back to that first picture of the dining room. That's what it takes to do this.
Yeah. And it's interesting. They say that it takes a village. I kind of understand it takes a village. It takes a tribe, because not everyone in the village is on your team. And that in the kitchen, every single being that's there had purpose, had meaning, was validated, and said, I am here for you. So when that plate arrives to the table, that's the magic that's happening behind the scenes. Those are the individuals that are going home to their families at night, and they were honored to serve you. And that, to me, is the Delmonico Way. And that's what the book is doing, is bringing that way into your home and teaching you. Maybe you've forgotten about self-worth. Maybe you're saying, okay, I'll take something off the value menu. But if we've reduced ourselves to a value menu, we reduce our self-worth and we reduce the experience of really enjoying life. And we don't have to spend a lot of money on it. It is whatever it is that makes you happy. Use the things that your grandmother or grandfather gave you. Use what your ancestors left behind. It doesn't have to be the Janori and the Baccarat and the Lalique that my left me. It could be the simple things of grandma's napkins, of her linens. Maybe she had a beautiful
I use them every day. I
use them every day.
Let's talk about two things you just said there that I think are really important. And the first is, in the totality of what you just said, the most important thing that we're going to take into the future of food, I think it's the thing that Michael could write his entire next book about. It's not ghost kitchens and cloud kitchens and AI and delivery and all the rest of it. It's a single word, and that word is service. We are the service industry. The service industry is here to be of service. And I say this all the time. I know you've heard me say this. I'm here. I'm at your service.
Yeah.
What do you need? How can I be useful and valuable to you today? Service is so important. I think our industry, even with all the economic pressures that we're giving the margins a squeeze for mom and pops and big restaurant groups alike, I think the one thing we continue to do brilliantly well was be of service. That we did the welcoming, the hospitality. People like Mrs. Leah Chase at Dookie Chase's would say, well, welcome to my house, reminding us that this is your house. I also believe that the entirety of the tech world that is taking us into Web3 could take a lesson from the hospitality industry. If I had somebody that was running another kind of business right now and starting a business, I would have them read this book. I would have them read the Delmonico Way, because the restaurant business understands how to take care of customers and guests.
Hopefully it does. Hopefully it does. That is the book that Michael wrote. Is like, that's what really the intentions of having a restaurant are. If you just want to be the front of the house and be the celebrity, then you're in the wrong industry. Right. Because that, for every broken light on Broadway, there's another one to screw in, So don't be that person that wants to do it for you. You really have to be in the hospitality service, even in writing this book, to be of service to others. And, when we just go back real quick to the menu, Oscar was so inventive that he had printing presses brought into the restaurant on the second floor, so that when they were having new menus, because he went every day to the markets in Brooklyn and Staten Island and Connecticut to get produce and food, he even had his car turned into a refrigerated vehicle. And he would have the printing in the restaurant. He would print new menus every day. I must have 1,000+ menus that go back from 1935 to present to, about the 80s. And then I have menus that were printed on silk from the 1800s. So if we can print a menu in-house, and we are have that attention to detail, where the blue plate special is changing to have you have a happier experience, that yesterday it's not going to be the same as today. That is hospitality. Changing the menu every day to tell people, come to my table. I'm cooking something new for you. That's hospitality.
The service piece is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
The welcoming is incredibly important. And as we go into the future of food and we talk about the service piece of this, yes, that's incredibly important.
Mm.
I don't want to miss the food. We think about food differently today than we thought about. Still want food to do the same thing for us that it's always done.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is a silly question, and it's kind of obvious. How important was the food for Oscar Tucci and Delmonico's?
That's a beautiful question. And Delmonico's was not a steakhouse. It was really a culinary experience, from French cuisine to Tuscan cuisine to even curries from India and South Africa dishes. Oscar really wanted to have the world come and dine at Delmonico's. So he offered dishes from around the world. He was inspired from the world of food. And so when you really look at that and when you see the menu, it's fabulous, because it goes, yes, we have all the grills and the chops and this, but then it goes into like curry mutton, and then it goes into Cornish hens and beef Wellington, and then it goes into one of my favorites were, all the eggs Benedicts, and then the crab salad and avocados, which I love. They were alligator pears. So, it goes into really the journey of food, the journey of spices. And it was not a steakhouse. I mean, that's the new Delmonico's. It was easy to brand it as a steakhouse. But when you go through the menus and when you go through the Delmonico Way, you're going to go through recipes that say, I thought Delmonico's was a steakhouse. And you're going to learn that, no, there were so many influences. We have my grandfather, being from Florence, Italy, loved to do the coda di gallo, the throat of the rooster stuffed with meat. Obviously, today we couldn't put that in to just create that. In Italy, they still do. But so the book, when you go through the journey of the food, we're going to have the classics, the wedge salad that Oscar created. We're going to have the eggs Benedict. But I have a beautiful modern version of it from Tara Cox. And then one of my best friends, Carla Hall. I love Carla. I call her my bestie. She's my own girl. She gave me one of the most incredible baked Alaska, mini baked Alaskas. And Chef Letty Alvarez, she did a baked Alaska cupcake for me. And then we have chip beef, which was on the menu. And I have that, I could have given you the Delmonico's version of it. But I said, I want to celebrate chefs. And I want to celebrate chefs that were inspired by Delmonico's. And Chef Kyle Mendenhall from Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, he gave me his grandmother's chip beef recipe. And then we put some of the Oscar's touches. So it's really family. It's his grandmother, my grandfather, and together we're giving you a chip beef. And so these are and then oh gosh, I love.
Oh, I'm like my mouth is drooling because I'm thinking about the best chip beef I've ever had in my life.
Well, it's in this book. So, and Beatrice I love Beatrice from Il Posto Accanto. She gave me a beautiful pasta recipe. And of course, Ciro Maccioni, who worked at Delmonico's, that was his first experience in the restaurant industry in America. My grandfather gave him the job because he was a fellow Tuscan and then became family. And so when I reached out to the Maccioni family, I said, I'm doing this book. I want to honor Ciro. I have his pasta primavera. And then Tony May, who worked at Delmonico's as well, and then went on to the Rainbow Room and to San Domenico, gave me his trademark uovo raviolo with truffles. So it's really, when I'm able to pick up the phone and say, Zio Tony, Maccioni family, Carla Hall, Chef Kyle, what are some of the recipes you would love to contribute? And it is without hesitation that they open their hearts, they open their cookbooks, they open their recipes, and they say, we want to honor the Delmonico legacy, your grandfather, and Mario, my father, and my Aunt Mary, who was the iron fist of Delmonico's, and my grandmother. I think we have a
picture of her, actually. We would be remiss if we didn't have a picture of them before we finish up.
Okay, so this is actually my father on the far right, and my father, because Delmonico's was welcoming Lena Horne, was welcoming Gypsy Rose Lee, Doris Day. They were all performing there. We had a Steinway, a grand piano in the main dining room. So my father started an entertainment, management company on one of the offices upstairs, and this was one of his events where he threw, and there he is in his tuxedo, Mario Tucci. But
let's look at the next one, because there's some amazing images that you've shared for us with this incredible legacy that you have, and I am so grateful. I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to make sure that we showed some of these pictures, because in the pictures of the family we have truly a sense of where we need to go next, and how important it is in the future of food to remember that among all other things, that human to human, regardless of the technology that connects us, we have to be welcoming. And we have to do what you speak of so eloquently. And I have to say, I've really become a disciple of yours in saying this about the validation.
Yeah, the validation. So, I know that the one picture of Mary, Cess, and Oscar we weren't able to pull up, but what I do know is that it's in the book. So the Delmonico Way, and what's most important too is that we say their names, that we say our ancestors' names, that we bring the spirit of who they were into this present moment, that we honor them and we say thank you to them. And I wanted to just touch up real quick on another recipe. Chef Daniel Green has sold over 1 million cookbooks. He has a new cookbook out right now. And I called him up. He's a buddy of mine, and most people know him he's one of the hosts on Shop HQ. And I said, Daniel, if I were to call you, which I'm doing now, and said, let's flash back 1953, and I have a women's luncheon, what would you put on the menu? And so he said, I would love to put my salmon and edamame. And I'm thinking, how creative and inventive for 1950 to have edamame on a salmon dish. So these are kind of the stories that I have in the book, where I called my chef friends and said, listen, let's create a menu. Let's flash back to Delmonico's. What would you serve? And so we have over 70 recipes and cocktails as well in the Delmonico Way. And legendary. So the subtitle, the book is called The Delmonico Way, Legendary Dining and Sublime Entertaining from the Restaurant That Made New York.
And in all of that, there is an essence. And that essence is that everything is irresistible. It's irresistible music. It's irresistible hospitality. It's irresistible Eggs Benedict. It's irresistible chipped beef. It's irresistible pasta primavera. It's not merely that it's elevated. It's that it's realized.
It's realized.
It's realized into the most irresistible form it can be. Yeah. That to me is truly the essence of the Delmonico Way, the essence of hospitality, irresistible welcoming.
I love irresistible welcoming. I think we need to have a needlepoint pillow that says irresistible. Right? But the chapters
that's what keeps you coming back, because
it is.
I'm teeing it up for you to give us as a big finish,
Okay.
Your world famous trademark about about why and how it is that people kept coming back.
Yeah.
For the
Well,
irresistible food and for the conviviality. But it was really that your grandfather did something remarkable. For the just arrived from Tuscany, soon to be legends themselves, to the guests, to the front of the house, to the back of the house, he treated everybody with this ideal that you share with us. And I'm hoping you'll share with us as we get ready to finish our conversation today, for which we're really grateful.
thank you. Absolutely. You know, Oscar, I never met him. And he died 10 years before I was born. I bear his name, Oscar Max Tucci. And what I find beautiful about Oscar's spirit is that my niece, Lily, was born on the day that Oscar was born and also the day that Oscar died,
Oh,
June
wow.
4th. And so not only was my niece Lily born on that day, but I have a niece in Italy who was also born on June 4th. So Oscar's spirit is alive more than ever. And when I was really doing this book, I was first originally I was going to do the book. I wanted a cookbook, then it turned into the restaurateur and Oscar story. But then when Charles from Rizzoli saw me doing a party for Whoopi Goldberg at Delmonico's, he said, "Oh no, it's not about Delmonico's. It's about what you learned at Delmonico's. It's about your experience. It's about the Tucci way, which is ultimately the Delmonico way." And so what we're sharing in the Delmonico way is the bar. We're sharing power lunches. We're sharing dinner with style. We're sharing tunes and the twist, because Chubby Checker came with Katina Rinieri one night when the twist was popularized and was teaching Delmonico diners how to dance the twist at Delmonico's. And then we have a romantic affair. These are chapters in the book. And La Familia. We end with La Familia, the family. And we end with the story of my father, Mario Tucci, my Aunt Mary, who really dreamed of being one of those Turner Classic starlets, but ended up being the Iron Fist of Delmonico's. We talk about my grandmother Sesta, my uncle Gigi, my mother, the Queen of Delmonico's, who really took the helm when my father died. And we also talk about Oscar Tucci, obviously Oscar Tucci, and how Oscar's beautiful welcoming all at the table. And where that quote came from was when Kristen Jorgensen, who was the first trans woman to have reconstructive surgery, come into the restaurant. There was a lot of dispute. The macho men there were like, "No, we don't want her." And Oscar said, "We don't want him," is what they really said. And Oscar said, "All are welcome at my table." And that is the spirit of Delmonico's. That is the spirit of Oscar Tucci. That is the spirit of the Delmonico way. I am the legacy of that. I am the torchbearer that runs full force into the future, into the dark nights, that says the Delmonico way is a lifestyle, but it's one that's adaptable. It's one that I'm honored to teach you, and one that I'm so glad you'll be able to bring into your home with the new book. And I'm just so thrilled that Rizzoli saw that in me, saw that in Delmonico's. The dream team that I have to put this book together with my beautiful editor, Caitlin, and my beautiful, oh my gosh, the photography and the food styling, everything is an imprint. It's a thumbprint of the Delmonico way. And so when we look at our thumb, that's the Delmonico building. That beautiful rounded building right on the corner of Beaver and South William. We have that in all of us, that thumb that says, "Welcome to the Delmonico way."
And your world famous validation of everybody, for us to take with us. It could be a toast. It could be a way of saying grace before a meal, before every bite. I see
It is
you.
the most beautiful grace. It is the prayer for every meal should be to everyone at the table. And even if you're dining by yourself, I see you, I hear you, and you matter.
I love that. Will you promise to come back and teach Michael Politz and I, the publisher of Food and Beverage Magazine, author of the Food and Beverage Magazine Guide to Restaurant Success, when the book comes out, will you come and teach us two things? I want to make in the kitchen with you talking me through it the pasta primavera.
Done.
And I know Michael, he's going to want to make and learn the secret to a true Delmonico steak.
Beautiful. And also we have the cocktails. And we're releasing for the first time the Delmonico's secret, which was my grandfather's drink that he would never tell anyone. I have the Gray's advertising from like the 1950s when they were pushing him to release it. And he never wrote in the parts of what the cocktail needed until this book. So we're sharing the secrets and the successes of Delmonico's.
How delicious is that drink? I've never had one.
Well, we will cheers together, and I really look forward to being with you in person, to being in your space, to being with you, and to celebrating the Delmonico Way, and to really raise the frequency and the vibration of validation so that we can have parties where we celebrate one another. The food and the drinks are wonderful, but without company, we're a solo meal. And it's not a bad thing if you love yourself.
Max Tucci, I adore you.
I adore you, and I thank
very
you for this opportunity. Thank you.
And where
Here we are.
Here we are. I was going to say, where can we hear you on Max and Friends?
Oh, thank you. You can hear me and you on Max and Friends. You've been on numerous times. This year, I'm celebrating 14 years on air. Max and Friends is on LA Talk Radio, latalkradio.com every Sunday night. I just did a book on meditation that will be released February. So meditation with Dr. Sister Jenna. And we have all kinds of beautiful guests, over 1,500 guests over the 14 years.
Wow.
From everyone from Jackie Collins. And Jackie Collins has a cookbook. I don't know if you know that, but the cookbook is the Lucky Santangelo cookbook. It's all about her characters, the Santangelos. So it's a fabulous cookbook. But Jackie would come on the show, and so many beautiful archives. latalkradio.com/Max for those archives. And on all podcasting platforms, follow me at Max Tucci. But please follow at the Delmonico Way on Instagram and at Oscars Delmonico. I appreciate it.
I have to ask, because everyone listening to this is going to say, is there going to be Delmonico's in our future?
So that's a great question. And Delmonico's, closed pandemic, March of 2020. It's going to be 2 years that it's closed now. There's been some wrinkles in the linens, but they're being ironed out, and fingers crossed that it will reopen. But one thing I know about Delmonico's is not that it will reopen, but when it will reopen. And I think that's the anticipation. But what I know about Delmonico's is the phoenix that rises from the ashes. September 11th couldn't close it. Hurricane Sandy couldn't close it. Prohibition couldn't close it. It has got this spirit and a beat of the city that will continue, and it will be the phoenix that rises from the ashes. So
I'll
stay
be there
tuned.
on opening day, Max Tucci. Thank you
But
very much.
more importantly, if you can't make it to Delmonico's, bring the Delmonico Way home. That's the purpose of the book.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Max Tucci. Thank you for joining us. I know we went a little bit longer than usual, but how do you talk about a restaurant history of over 100 years?
Right.
And one of the most important
200 years. 200 years.
Well,
but Jennifer, we have to real quick, because I want to drop it here first. I've already put it's in your ear, but I want your listeners to know that we're starting the Delmonico Culinary Institute at Delmonico Farms in Westchester County. So there's a lot to talk about.
because this is something that's a legacy that's passed, not through the writing of a check, but through the legacy of showing me. Show me. Teach me. If I can see what welcoming and hospitality look like, I can make it happen again.
You said the word see, and you know what word I always say? Really what service and hospitality is? Intimacy. Intimacy. Take that with you this week.